round, then to a flat again, okay? These are like your transition points as you cut. Try not to drop the hair, okay? So a couple things that we're gonna do. First off, the very first section that we're gonna take, even though the head's divided in the middle, we're not gonna just work one side then the other. We're actually working both sides together. So the first section that you take, you have to make sure that this little first panel, it's like a little square section that you take out, is not super wide. If it's really wide, what's gonna happen, you're gonna notice right off the bat you've opened up the face too much, okay? So you can almost just place 3 fingers at the top part of the head, and wherever that width is before the curve, or you can also use your comb, look at that area, and that's gonna be your very first section that you're going to cut. I've seen a lot of people when they do their face frames, they're like down here and they cut them, and then they drag these sections in. The problem is you're dragging things on a one length, so it's at 0 degrees, which means you're gonna put a big weight line there. Because you're dragging on the face where it's not going to sit, there's no way you're gonna be able to get that even on both sides, okay? So when you start this, you take your first section, you can bring it down and look at where you want to start the first division of space. I'll give you some pointers. This is the worst part to start, okay? Start at the jaw, you will literally have placed a bob there. You want to cut some pieces shorter for the front part of the face? Absolutely do it after. Okay, so you do these first, and then you could always add in a little bit of a layer from side to side. You're going to start off in first position. You're going to take your very first section. We're going to be lifting it. When you lift it, you're going to determine depending on the weight of the hair. So if it was heavier hair, I'd want to lift it up much higher to remove more weight. If it's curly hair, I'm going to want to drag it a little bit lower. If it's finer hair, I'm going to want to drag it a little bit lower as well. Okay? So the heavier the hair, the higher I'm going to lift. The lighter the hair or the more shrinkage I'm going to get, because it's curly, the lower I'm going to bring that first section. Take your first section, decide where you want that guide more or less to cut. We're going to try to stay like 3 fingers under the jaw so that we can do the next cut. Does that sound good? Yes? Mm-hmm. Even the collarbone would be pretty safe as well. Take your first section, you're going to cut. Okay? Try not to drop the hair at this point. Now you need to decide whether you're going to move from one side over to the other, and I'm going to choose this side just because it's going to make it easier. I'm now going to take my feet, I'm going to place one foot directly at the center part of her head, and I'm going to extend the length with this foot. So now as I start to work, as I start to work down, okay, what you'll notice is you can take your fingers and point it right to your foot, okay? If I want this to go shorter, I move my foot in, and the same position is now going to take length off. If I want, again, keeping that foot stationary, and I want to really build up a lot of length, I can move my foot back this way from that first point. And we're going to do that on both sides. There's a great educator in Canada, and what he's been doing is he's actually been placing tape on the floor for the student to move from one side over the other. And it totally works, okay? So we're going to slowly move down, and all I'm doing is just connecting. I'm pulling out my sections directly towards the fronts, and I'm just following that angle that I've created from my very first section. And then we get to that last little nibble. We can come in and we can just comb the hair and see if it starts to bevel, which is a good thing, okay? I come back into first position. I'm going to take that same section, place my foot in the middle, and then move to the other exterior. And if you think about the placement of your mannequin stand, right? Just look to see that the legs look even and that you're not completely wonky from one side over to the other, okay? And because you're standing in equal places at each point, the way the sections get pulled up will immediately give it the balance that you're looking for, okay? As we start to move on, you guys ready for, good, good, okay? As we move on, we're gonna continue to practice the side step, but look how much of the bottom I've already cut. So really now, all I have to do is really focus on the top part and just making sure those last little pieces get blended in, okay? So we take our next section down, and your sections are slowly moving from that very steep diagonal, and it's moving to that vertical section. So your last section will be that guy right there. Okay, so your sections are doing like a bannico. So it's doing this. Okay, and it's going dot, 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 dot. Okay, always working right to the bottom part of the outline. And so as we do our second panel, okay, we're going to start to lift. And now what we want to do is also use both parts of our hands. So we're going to work on top of our fingers as well as transition to the bottom. Okay, so here we go. Now I'm going to take this section. This kind of always reminds me of like roller setting, because you want to be thinking about this off base. So you look at that section off base. Check for your guide. If there's something you want to say, just spit it out. That was a joke. That was a joke. It seems like that. Okay. Now you're going to take your foot, place it right through the center, step off to the side. Don't drop, lift. And you'll see that exact same guide on the underneath. Follow it. Cut. Now at this point, I'm going to transition back down. And all I'm really doing here is just blending any last little pieces. And generally with these mannequins, when you get to there may be a pube to cut, okay? You can just give it a little combing. If you feel uncertain, just come, stand the opposite way and just look to see that everything's working from short to long. If you need to clean a little bit, you can. Don't go too crazy. And the worst thing to do would be this, taking it down and cleaning it here. So a lot of times people will layer it, they'll keep building the layer and building the layer, and because it's mannequin hair, they go, ooh, and they bring it down and they clean it all up, and what they've just done is they've taken all the layer away in the hair. So don't do that. What's that? Okay. We're gonna lift again right on top of our fingers, cut, cut, cut. Okay. Step off to the side, lift the section. Follow to where your guide is. Now come back down, palm to palm. And every time I'm on this side, you'll always see, I'll kind of lean off.
Now, is the reason why you're like going from lifting up and elevating to dropping down because you're working from a round spot on the head to the flat spot?
Well, I've got to connect the layering.
Okay.
So if I stay, it's a very good question, by the way. Very good, okay? So if I stay here, I can bring everything to that exact same point. And if I was working with curly hair, it would be great, because what's going to happen is the whole thing's going to jump back and shrink. Problem with straighter hair is I'm only going to have the design in the front. I'm going to have nothing in the back. So in order to carry that length and that layer, I have to continually lift a little bit each time. What I can't do is go from this guy straight up. Okay, so each section has to be pulled forward to your guide. Now, the lifting happens and the hand position changes because this would just be, exactly. So you work on top of your fingers. And what you're doing is you're like, okay, now I go to the next part. And though I did that last section palm to palm because the hair was being held down at a lower angle. Now to continue this layer, I want to connect, which means I'm working on top of my fingers. And then what I'm doing at this last point is I'm transitioning from that upper half all the way. It's like just literally walking down the stairs.